Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to The Cut. It's Cody here with my guy, Ben. How we doing today, buddy?
Mr. Codeman, what's going on? Doing great. Just had a fantastic Wednesday with you at PGA Frisco. Some content to come. Really love that place. That was awesome. It's good to go see you in Texas.
I know. It was so nice to have you down here. Awesome day getting a film room in the can. Listen. It's going to look really good, visually stunning. Unfortunately, the golf, it's just not there right now. And that's a little concerning because we have NIT next week.
But we need to be totally fair and honest. Cody, you did fly halfway across the world 2 days before, deciding to fire it up and shoot a number at a championship golf course from 7,000 yards. So give yourself a little rope, my guy.
I know. I'm trying to, but hey, I think first and foremost, everybody, we have a studio audience here. Welcome to The Cut. What is The Cut? I think that's probably where we need to start. And I've been thinking about this. Yeah, I've been thinking about this for a while, is that we have a pretty robust content library from weekly podcasts to bi-weekly podcasts to videos that come out almost every single week, and specifically in the fall with Premier Tour Sauce and everything else like that. But there's nothing that kind of ties it all together. And there's nothing that ties it together from kind of our point of view, from the guys in the back, the camera boys, cameramen, whatever you want to call us. And that's where this kind of came from. And we originally talked about this like in July, doing something additive that it would be first and foremost focused on Nest members, access via the refuge, and then what I was surprised with is that the dads gave us permission to put it out on the YouTube channel. So that was kind of a shock to me.
Right. I was not expecting that at all. But, hopefully it'll be useful for, other people as well. And maybe it'll get more people to be interested in the Nest and want to watch it live and, have some supplementary, conversation and insight after a Tour Sauce episode. Because if there's one thing that we know that the Nest people like to do, they like insider knowledge in the NLU business. They love to talk about Tour Sauce after it ends. So felt like a smart thing to do.
I know. I hate this for you already, Benny. People kind of blowing you up about your internet connection.
Hell yeah. Very cool. Just had a conversation about it. Potential problem. But hey, I feel like I look clear here. I don't know. Don't know what to tell you. Might need a booster.
You got to get on it, man. We'll get it figured out, though. But we utilize Riverside for almost every podcast interview that we do now. That's the program that you see now. So people in the studio audience, you can actually, there should be a prompt somewhere that you can request access to join the show, because the whole point of The Cut is not only to discuss content that we have going on throughout the week, give a little bit of insight into it, but also bring a studio call-in show to the NLU channels. So if you see there, if you want to get involved, get in the show, there's going to be a time for question and answer at the end, but that's how you use it. Today, joined by a very special guest, that's DJ Piehowski. The reason why I wanted to have DJ on, first and foremost, is to talk all things Tour Sauce. TC handles the majority of the planning and logistics portion of it, but just like they mentioned in the NLU pod, having Scandinavia come out for an idea kind of seemed out of left field. And from DJ's point of view, I always thought it would be interesting to get his thoughts on how he's going to put this whole thing together.
Right. And most importantly, to get to the bottom of is this fake Wes Anderson? Is this intentional Wes Anderson? Is it a mix of both? We don't know. We're going to ask DJ and we're going to find out. Spoiler alert, very intentional.
You think so? It's not completely over the top?
Oh, it might be over the top, but that's where we live, baby.
All right. Well, let's see. The first thing that I wanted to show was actually the intro. So we're going to play the intro of this episode 1 of Tour Sauce and then get the Pie Man in to kind of hear what his thoughts on it are.
My favorite part.
Sjung upp för helan går, sjung upp för alla lej. Och den som inte helan tar, han heller inte halvan får. Helan går. And now you drink. And then you sing, hopp för alla lej. Oh, we're supposed to do the whole thing? I don't know.
Oh, you liked it.
I don't know what you were thinking here because honestly, it turned out horrible. The visuals just are crap. I think you could probably go back and use a couple extra weeks back in the editing booth.
All drone shots, you had to use Lofoten. Tough.
We only had one good shot from the whole season, so that's why normally we have these big long intros, and we only had one good shot this time. So unfortunately, had to just squeeze it out. Guys, happy to be in the cut. Long time listener, long time fan of the cut. Guys, just what a thrill! What a thrill for me to be here with you two. I can't wait to chop it up.
Well, thank you. It's an honor to have you on here with us, being that we report basically to you. So if we mess this up, I mean, we know what the actions of it are going to be.
Yeah, it could be a true own goal for you guys.
For sure.
Can't wait to see how it goes.
What a great pull for our first ever episode. We get DJ Wes Anderson, Piehowski himself on. That's impressive on our end.
Yeah, good get for you guys. Really good get.
So you talked about it with the rest of the guys in the recap podcast this week. And if you haven't caught up on the NLU podcast that came out on Tuesday, it's full tour sauce recap from day one to the end. And there was a lot of meat on that bone. I think it was 2.5 hours long. But from going back at the end of January, we all met up for our yearly offsite. And I think hearing that to people, it might sound crazy, but yes, we have yearly meetings and huddles and everything else like that. It is a business. And TC had this idea, and I think he had gone around individually to people and trying to generate some form of support before he was truly going to stunt on us all in Denver and try to whip the votes.
You don't just drop a bill on the Senate. There's weeks and weeks and weeks of planning that go into really presenting that bill to the floor. And you got to kind of know exactly how many votes you have before you go, try to implement one of those things. So I think Tron, like any good congressman, I think he realized that.
Did he have initial support from anyone?
I mean, he reached out to me. I'm
Go ahead,
surprised.
I know your Wi-Fi. I know your Wi-Fi is slow, but
it's tough.
Horrible.
Tough look for Benny.
I'll go into my bedroom where the Wi-Fi sits. No, I'm surprised that he reached out to everyone. If he reached out to everyone, did he reach out to anyone? Because he reached out to me. What do you think about Scandinavia? Hell yeah, let's go, brother.
Cliffhanger ending there for Ben. Yeah, I think he he wanted to chat up everybody about it, and I think that the reaction was very universal. I think from you two boys, I won't speak for you guys, but I think for you two it was a lot of
we don't really matter. Yeah.
Oh my God, that's how are we going to get all these bags inside of all these ferries? How many different vessels do you guys want us crossing these waterways on? And I think, Neil was very that sounds fucking awesome. Let's go do it. I'm sure Solly was probably similar in the boat with me, which was that's a lot of production to kind of wrap our arms around. And it was just, it was a lot of moving pieces. But I think once everybody took a step back, thought about it, was kind of oh, that's probably the best thing we could possibly do this year. And I think that's how it turned out.
Yeah, it turned out absolutely stunning. But again, I remember he had this entire multiple deck presentation ready. And he used a ton of Jakob's pictures when I don't even think we realized it at the time.
Unlicensed. Probably owe Jakob for those.
Of course. But I know Jakob had sent messages last year. And I know TC had been working on this for a little bit. I had no clue what golf was going to look like there. I obviously know that Sweden has a rich and deep golf history. This is a mobile show too, so it doesn't matter where you're coming from.
The people have spoken, and they need better Wi-Fi. So we're accomplishing
microphone in hand. Impressive.
As you can hear, the shots are ringing out behind me. We're going to find some cover.
But yeah, it turned out absolutely stunning, and I think a lot of that is part of Jakob and the pictures and visuals that he was able to send over time, but from the creative side of it and knowing that you're going to have to put all this footage together and make a season out of this, I mean, there had to be a little bit of nerves of like, what is this actually going to look like?
Yes and no, because it's one of those things where we're trying constantly to like push the production value up and trying to make it so that you can actually see and hear what we're doing out there. And I think when you're going to a destination like Scandinavia or Sweden or Denmark or Norway or any of these places that we're going, like a lot of the fish out of water-ness does a lot of the heavy lifting, right? So we know that Neil, no offense, we know we're going to have the like tuck task gate. We know that stuff's going to happen. And that just kind of takes a lot of pressure off when it's just like, well, we're all fish out of water. Some funny stuff's going to happen at least. Nobody knows what the golf is going to look like. So that's interesting in itself, whether it's good or bad. And so honestly, a destination like this just like creatively takes a lot of the pressure off. I think once you try to, if you try to like wrap your arms around everything, and I think that's a mistake that, you know, maybe we've done in the past a little bit is where it's like, okay, we're in Detroit. Like, let's, you know, I remember like day one of our shoot in Detroit was kind of like, okay, cool. I mean, we're here for 36 hours. Like, let's wrap our hands, you know, let's wrap our arms around the entirety of the history of the city. Right. And that is such a stupid mistake to make. And so I think what we've kind of realized now is like, okay, let's take a breath. Let's put ourselves in a situation to like run into some very cool places and people, and then do the best job we can of kind of highlighting what our experience is like there. I don't think, you know, we don't need to tell the entire story of the history of Scandinavia in this fucking golf series. So let's just focus on like what it's like for us and what our experience is. And once you start thinking about it like that, it just becomes super fun and it takes a lot of the pressure off. That's how I feel. I don't know if that's how you guys felt.
Boy, did we try to tell the entire history of Scandinavia though? Some of those post round sessions got deep, got real deep.
Yeah,
so we tried, but you know we were futile, Deej. We got it in.
Well, it's all there for the outtakes. The outtakes can be 9.5 hours long of a lot of like public policy decisions in Scandinavia and just transportation infrastructure, things like that. I think we can cover a lot of that in
the Finnish Prime Minister.
Maybe a more niche outlet.
Ben, where are the outtakes? Where's last season's outtakes?
Where are the outtakes? They're sitting on a 4 terabyte Lacey drive in my office. Yes, outtakes. It's going to happen. I promise. Just to put into perspective what that looks like, right? We shot, DJ, tell me if I'm wrong, about 2.5 terabytes in Michigan. 1.8, something like that, in that range. So your normal document, your normal PDF is like 3 to 5 megabytes. 1,000 of those equals a gigabyte. 1,000 of those equals a terabyte. Just to put into perspective of how much we actually shoot. I've got to go through about 2 terabytes of content, watch all of the shows, understand what's already been used, what's not, sync up all the systems, which, we had a massive advancement this year where the syncing of the audio on the mics that you hear. So, when people are really far away, for example, when Randy chipped in on in the last episode, right, you could hear all that conversation, even though they're 200 yards away from where Cody was up there sniping him with the big lens. Before that, we had to actually sit there and manually link up those tracks with where that video hit and do that for the entirety of 2.5 terabytes of content. So we got that fixed now. So long story short, it is an absolute monster to dive into Michigan and get those outtakes done. I've started it. I've watched all the footage. I've got a project going. But man, it's a huge lift, and it feels like the absolute perfect thing to do in a cold, dreary winter in Kansas City.
I was just on in case anybody cares about the inside baseball stuff, I was just on a shoot in Ireland with our homies from Yeti, and they were getting ready to shoot their golf stuff, and it was truly like, everybody start the cameras. We're doing one clip, one take for like 9 holes of golf, never cutting, never, just rolling on the whole thing. And it was like, they looked at me like I had 19 heads when I was like, oh no, we just like cut all the time. Like, doesn't it take forever to sink? I'm like, yeah, it does. But I hadn't thought about doing it this way, so I don't know what to tell you. So yeah, there's a lot of different best practices out there, I guess is what I'm getting at.
Sounds like a ton of anxiety packed behind that no cut.
And if I may, also just for the people in the chat right now, it's the way Riverside works. It's uploading all of our video as we're going. That's why the quality's so low. So people who are watching this on YouTube will have no idea of these internet struggles, and that's just a little peek behind the curtain for you as well.
Yeah, exactly. So I think let's get back into what episode is and what it ultimately ended up being on film. Ben, unlike the rest of us, travel was very well covered in episode 1 as well as in the podcast, but you were on vacation. You're coming from Italy.
Yes, absolutely. Had a conversation with the wife, a virtually free ticket to Europe. Felt like a good opportunity to only have to buy one and then, go on a European vacation. So we did that. It was our first one in like 5 years. First one post-COVID, but had a lovely time in the northwestern corner of Italy. Was fantastic. Ended up being about 26 days that I was in Europe, which is, feels like a little bit of a feather in the cap to have spent a month in Europe. Solly and I, we can now look at each other in the eye, shake hands, and, understand what that's like.
What I think
Welcome
people
to the
don't
brotherhood.
realize, what people don't realize is that episode 1 actually was supposed to look a lot different than it turned out to be. We had an interview scheduled with a very well-known and prolific Swedish player who just so happened to sign his live deal like 3 days before we arrived. And that kind of cut the interview and welcome to Stockholm golf scene. So tough time to be in the Swedish golf camp. And that carried on, I think, with the rest of the interviews. People kind of confused, wondering what's going on. What do they think of live and everything else like that as Henrik signed and then shortly thereafter was removed from captaincy. But on film, I know that there was a little bit of concerns that trench lines were still going to be there. The grass hasn't fully grown in. And ultimately, it's like, it appears to kind of be choked out by a city. But at the same time, it's embracing the structures around it. And it looks phenomenal in person.
Yeah, I think it's one of the cooler places we went on the trip for a lot of the reasons that you mentioned that almost seem like they should be negatives and I think actually end up as positives. Right. And I mentioned it on the podcast, but I think like the Frankenstein looking scars all over the fairway are actually like really cool. I think I know they're going to work to get those, get those all cleaned up and ready to go. But I thought Christian London did a great job of spelling it out in the episode of just like, hey man, either it can look like this and we can stay open or we can close the course for 2 years. Like your choice. And it's just such a no-brainer. Like, I don't even know that I really, maybe because I didn't hit very many fairways, but I don't even know that I even thought about the trench lines while we were out there. I mean, if your ball's in there, you move it out and take a drop the same way you would if it was on a cart path or something. But it's just such a freaking no-brainer to keep the course open, take advantage of the long summer days, all of that stuff. And Christian it was cool hearing him spell all that stuff out.
I will say the drone footage was mildly shocking in comparison to how I felt on the ground. I did not feel like those trenches were an issue whatsoever. Then you see it on the drone footage, like, wow, that's pronounced. But no, it was awesome. It was fantastic. Anything named after a city or the area that you're located in with country club or golf club on the end, sign me up. Very interested.
What we saw to start the episode out is another return feature that I think first included in the videos at Tourist Sauce, Michigan, and that's an incredible map feature. And there's a lot of little things that go into the editing process and putting these all together, but the maps that Seth has been able to put together to kind of show this gigantic overlay, the space that we're going to end up covering and make it unique to the scenes that we're going to is one of a kind. And I have the clip here, so I want to play the beginning into Stockholm Golf Club.
Stockholm Golf Club, just really, really funky, cool course.
I mean, just feels like it's been there forever. And
Now, I'm going to pause it right there. Deej, what's up with these shots that you keep throwing in there? Where are you getting inspiration from somewhere, or is this just a one-time thing?
It's very much not a one-time thing. So we were, I think, kind of joking. I don't know where it actually hit us. I think maybe on the plane ride over. We were talking about all of these different, you can really see it in the dinner scene in episode 1, where, we knew we were going to have all these weird Swedish things with funny spellings and pronunciations. And, when Anne is rolling out like the Swedish caviar and stuff like that, it's like, we're going to need to ID what this stuff is. Cause I think that's like kind of the coolest part of a lot of food and travel shows, is where they show you something on screen and then actually like spell out like, what is this dish? How do you spell it? How do you pronounce it? And so obviously knew that there was going to be a ton of that in this season. And for whatever reason, where my head went was almost kind of the scene in Rushmore. And it's similar in a lot of Wes Anderson movies, but the scene in Rushmore where they're spelling out like all of his different clubs that Max Fisher is a part of, and he's the Beekeeper Society and the fencing team and the debate society and all these different things. I just think it's like so funny and so cool to see these like super, super still, almost like moving portrait kind of shots. And with Scandinavia being just deeply organized and very, very still and very structured and very just kind of put together, it just seemed like kind of a funny little, fairly blatant homage, I think, to one of my favorite movies. So there you go. I thought that'd be funny. And then the fonts, I think our guy Kubrick was deep into using the Futura font as well. And so it's just kind of a funny thing that I always think looks super, super clean. And again, it just fits really well with Scandinavia and kind of the whole vibe over there. And it's fun to mess with different font treatments too. So shout out to Matt Golden, our very unsung editor who has worked on anything worthwhile we've ever done. Matt has basically been behind the scenes pulling the strings on that. And so we had a lot of fun kind of putting together something that kind of looked like that.
I will say, Deej, it felt like the first time that we actually had an anchor shot that we had to get in a Torah Sauce episode. Before it was kind of just like, hey, see what we can get, and we'll figure it out in post, right? And this was the one time that it's like, hey, remember to get the Wes Anderson shot. Remember to get something interesting like that.
Yeah,
so that was just fun.
Easy to miss on the wrong side of that one too, and get way too in your own head and too structured, because that's when you start missing all the kind of like organic gold. So it was fun to have one a day. I don't know what it would be like to be out there with 75 different shots that you had to think about getting all day every day. That would be miserable. So
for sure.
in a place where golf is young, I think that's in a way, to me, it felt like this is where it started. That there's history, there's like a little bit of pedigree. But it was also just very unique and not what I expected the golf course to look like at all. I think that was the perfect first stop for us.
I really like golf courses that feel like they're hemmed in by their surroundings. And in this case, it's a big city. Stockholm Golf Club both feels like an escape from the city, but you're also still in the city.
What an absolute legend he is.
Ole.
Yeah, it's everything about him, his swing, his style, it's just aspirational. I know we said this about Ann and T as well, but like, just what an amazing guy.
And his brother, people don't realize, was a fucking menace at UCLA back in the days when I used to cover college golf for Golf Week magazine. I saw Ole's last name, Wiedegren, and was like, oh, wow, there was a Swedish guy, named Wiedegren that was at UCLA when I was there. Super good player. He's like, oh, yeah, that's my brother. He lives right over there. I was like, oh, how about that? Worlds colliding. So, and I believe Ole's dad is the GM at Stockholm's Golf Club, too. So a family affair, you would say.
Only just ooze swagger. I mean, almost making a hole-in-one, pulling out the little bottle of schnapps and taking a nip, and it was just ooze swagger. Ole's the man.
Do you know how bad any of us would look in that cardigan that he was wearing?
Oh, so good.
So bad. It would be what a train wreck that would be if any of us tried to pull that off.
A true behind the scenes moment. Like as soon as that episode was done, Casey was already sending mock-ups of a potential NLU version of it, which would be
great.
life-altering.
I feel like we'd need to, I feel like people would almost need to apply to buy that though. Like let me see your application. Let me see if you can really pull that off or not.
Big
Otherwise,
could wear
we
it.
can in good conscience. I think Randy would be fine. I think
Big
that's
would be
good.
great.
I think that's a great call. But it would be very hit or miss. I don't think we could in good conscience sell that cardigan to certain people, myself included.
Yeah, for sure. I think the other thing that you see right out of the beginning is very impressive drone shots. Their driving range was over like basically a pond, a lake. And I know there's a little bit of concern that kind of ran through this entire season of potentially drone losing battery and crashing into the water. Ben, you have anything else on that?
Yeah, so I'm sitting up in the floating sauna on the archipelago, and DJ had already jumped in the freezing cold water and is starting to paddleboard away, and kind of calls out, "Hey, Solly, throw up that drone. Get me on the paddleboard." Right. So DJ's out in the archipelago
for my Instagram.
Yes, of course. And Solly's flying the drone, and for whatever reason, we only had like 35% left in a battery left on the drone. And if anyone
which
flies,
is fine, which is like
totally
70%.
Yeah. If anyone knows with drones, around 25%, they start to yell at you big time when they're losing battery and threatening, I'm coming home, and it's like, where are you coming to? Because we're in a shed. Like, you're not just coming straight down. So Solly starts legitimately freaking out. Like actually being like, oh my gosh, I don't know what to do, and like telling DJ who's on the paddleboard to grab it out of the air so we don't lose it.
I can't tell you how cold the water was too. The last thing you want to do is fall off the paddleboard, look like a dickhead, and fall into freezing water.
I think you can just
with
go
the
back.
Drone.
Yeah, you can just go back and check.
That's just not going to happen. Well,
I can't do tapes. That. When we all jumped in, go and look and see who's like the quickest to swim back in, because that water was legitimately like ice cold.
Yes. Yeah. But anyway, so then the drone started getting a mind of its own. It was floating away from us as Solly was trying to fly it. So the started ramping up the concern, ending up landing it, and we had like 12% battery left. So
totally fine. Totally fine. We cruised into the gas station with plenty of gas on the tank.
We see the archipelago scene play out on film,
that's
but
totally
it was not
accurate,
anything.
Solly.
Yeah,
Solly, come in and defend yourself if you don't think that's accurate. Would love to hear your telling of the story, because that's exactly how I saw it.
I don't think that worked out. It wasn't what I was expecting like at all. It was so much more and so cool to actually experience like that evening there.
Yes.
Oh, it's unbelievable. Unbelievable. There it was. I mean, it's kind of a joke. Like the whole thing is just like ultimate relaxation. I don't know how you could be stressed about really anything out there, and it's like the worst part about it is that your phone still works because the fucking Swedish telecommunications infrastructure is so good.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's just
we actually first calling guest.
Yeah.
Let's see what he's got to fire.
Here we go.
Back.
Be tactical.
Let's just not exaggerate how much battery was left on that thing.
He must be in Ben's closet too.
Where it just said, like, it straight up said, like, hey, we're turning off all sensors here. It's so low, we're turning off sensors, and we're not even going to hover. Like, I couldn't even hover it in the same place. It was drifting off to random places and trying to land on top of the water. So I will not stand for any mischaracterization of how much battery was left on that thing.
Thank you. Are you on your treadmill right now?
Also, I'm not on the treadmill right now. I'm at the standing desk, but also it's archipelago. I cannot stand for this pronunciation any longer as well.
Get this guy out of here.
Okay, I'm good.
We're just trying to be cultured.
Thank you, sir.
Cody, what else? What else you got?
Well, what I would say is that at the very closing of the episode, we saw a note that the episode was, in memory of Ola Johnson. And who that was is actually Jakob's father-in-law. He was the boat captain that picked us up at the dock. We went to the archipelago is like a series of 1,000 or however many islands that are out there. And basically a long time ago, Ola purchased one of like a section of these islands, and over time he's given his kids plots on it to build off of. And we went to Jakob and his wife's plot first. That's where you see us hitting golf balls over the water and everything else. But unfortunately, like I would say it's definitely less than a month ago, he ended up passing away. And that was completely random, shocking news to us, because we spent the entire evening with him basically shuttling us around and telling us stories of the water and living out there and everything. He's such a rich and vibrant character that it's a shame. And I know that message caught a lot of people off guard at the end, but he truly made that evening with Jakob for us.
Yeah, here. That was a gut punch to hear that one, but I'm glad that, glad Jakob shared it with us. And I don't know, hopefully that's, if I had a piece of land like that, it hopefully would be cool to have something like that at least captured to show how much outsiders appreciated it and enjoyed it, and what an integral part of that he was. So it was that was a heck of a night.
Yeah, we like to do these goats and woats of the trip at the end, and he was a pretty consensus goat. So that, he was just the man, and truly, I don't know, don't really have anything else to say. It's really, really sad.
We closed the episode out there at a phenomenal restaurant, but everybody playing ping pong, and what looks really cool on tape, not really the case in real life, because the ping pong balls were dented. A couple of the paddles were absolutely broke. The table was falling apart, and that massive Castrol oil sign was just bucking with the lens. But a really cool shot to close out the episode. Looking forward to episode 2, though. What do you have in store for us?
We're going to Brohof Sloot, which is kind of the, I would say the premier, I would say the only golf course other than maybe Lofoten, just because it's been so popular on YouTube and Instagram and stuff. But I think Brohof was kind of the only course I'd really heard of before this trip, just because it is such a championship golf course. They host so many tournaments. It's kind of their TPC Sawgrass almost, and I think it has maybe some similarities to Sawgrass, actually. So it was it's a place that's really freaking hard. I will say that up front. You can surmise how I played based on that review, but it's a cool place to see. We play with Willie Schoeman, who's the kind of the voice of Swedish golf. He does the PGA Tour Swedish telecasts over there, and played with him, former European Tour player, former NCAA champion at Minnesota, just an all-around legend. Some more great perspective from him. And I believe the episode also kicks off with a kind of like a proper tour of Stockholm. So, I know episode 1, day 0, was kind of like get off the plane and go straight to Ann and Tees. Episode 2 is much more like let's kick our feet up for a day and go explore a bunch of stuff, a shitload of different shit. And it contains some of my favorite montages I think that we've ever done. A lot of subway content, a lot of museum content. It's good wholesome stuff.
Before we break that down a little too much, if people are in the studio, they have questions of DJ, what they thought of the first episode, questions about shooting, anything else, this is your time to request access in before we kick him out of here and cover the rest of the stuff. But what I'll say is that what I remember that's going to come out in episode 2, TC talked about this on the recap podcast, but he drugged my ass around the subway system in Stockholm for about 6 hours. I was tired as a dog holding the damn gimbal everywhere we went. And at first he said, we're only going to go to these like 6 stations, turned into like a dozen. And I was hurting, man.
TC missed his calling to be, that British train spotting guy?
Oh gosh.
TC missed his calling. He could have been the influencer that just went around and got fucking hyped whenever a train was coming through. I think that would have been really good for him.
Cody, for what it's worth, some of the coolest shots of the entire trip. I mean, brilliant shots in Subway.
Yeah, the Subway stuff is crazy.
They turned out amazing, and very, very happy that it's probably going to be some of the few shots of mine this season that my lens is not completely filthy. A couple tough spills out there on day 1, and it just kind of continued throughout the trip. I don't know if I didn't have proper tread on my footwear or whatnot, but I think I fell on every single golf course that we went to and just
Really?
mucked everything up.
You could tell, just a fun Easter egg for the people. You could tell how often Cody's changing lenses by how dirty the sensor gets. So it's gonna get worse before it gets better. But just something to keep in mind. We're out in the field. There's a lot of moving parts out there.
All right. Well, Benny, do you have anything else on episode 1 or the recap pod?
Yeah, episode 1. One thing that I just totally, I'm not sure it was completely, ironed out on the actual episode, but going into the Hickory round, everyone had their eyes on Neil. If he gets this going, he's going to be a problem. Watch out for Neil. I hate that he's starting with Hickories. This is like what he does, right? He then proceeded to be unable to get the ball in the air for 3 holes. So I don't think that worked quite well.
It was the grooves. It was the grooves, man.
It was definitely the grooves.
Ben, you were there with us for the whole round. Did you think it was the grooves that was the issue?
When you miss the club face entirely, they don't make much of an impact. Now, it could be very off-putting to look down on, but
sure.
Neil, I love you, buddy, but that was tough on your third shot that did not hit it did not apex in the air to look back at me and be like, God, these grooves, just no grooves. I can't. Something's wrong. Yeah, you're
so we saw
the ball.
jacket. We saw the jacket change hands, but has there been any other matches since then?
No, not yet. We need to get one on the books. I'm trying to think when the next one would even be. I do like that the Hickory clubs are so small that you can kind of pack them in with your set. So I've brought them to to Scotland. I've brought them on other trips. So I assume Neil is down to do the same. I very much look forward to the next one. And I will concede the grooves thing was tough. I don't think it made the entire difference of the match, but I think it was a factor, and I'm willing to acknowledge that. And I look forward to our next match.
I think everybody's looking forward to it, just because I know how much that matters to Neil. On top of it, like the fact that there's now a 2-time world Hickory champion.
How about that? We didn't even mention that.
I didn't realize that.
Yeah,
he won it again.
Whoa,
Ole, 2-time world Hickory champion. Which
Holy
again,
shit.
I have to assume is like his. He's now 2 for 2, right? Like I don't think he plays a lot of other Hickory stuff. Unbelievable.
that's wild.
Moving on, crazy episode this week on the Trap Draw. Hopefully you guys caught it. If you haven't, a fantastic session with Randy and TC. Started out by our breaking report live from the DMZ. I don't know if you guys were able to catch it or not, but I actually have something here for the people that decided to stick around. Now, before we fully explain what's going on, I think we need to set it up a little bit better than that, because I actually clicked the wrong link here. Thank you, Big. Real quick, we're breaking in a very special report on location. This is a Trap Draw investigation. Me and my man TC live from the DMZ. TC, how are we doing today?
We're here. We're waiting for the Super Viking to open up behind me. I was not expecting to see it. It's such a full-fledged amusement park here. We're just outside the DMZ.
We are currently, just to give the listeners and everybody kind of a situational awareness of where we're at. We're at the Welcome Center for the DMZ, where all the buses you see behind us, buses on buses and buses of tourists full of people just like us, all passport holding
media.
people.
We're not tourists, we're media.
Do we have a little issue with passports this morning?
We did. We'll leave that to the video.
Okay, we'll leave it to the
Sully,
video.
will you show the folks where we are? Just behind here.
The Freedom Bridge. Beautiful, beautiful bridge built by the proud people of South Korea. Why?
Basically, when the reunification of the country eventually happens, we get Lil Kimmy out of there. They are going to put a train over that bridge, and that'll be the main connection between the two countries.
Little Kimmy's a big train guy, I think, right?
I think that's how he travels around the country.
Armored train everywhere.
I've invited Lil Kimmy to meet us in the DMZ, at the JSA, or the Dora the Explorer observatory over there, and we'll see if he takes us up on it. I think he's going to play for us.
All right. Initial report coming to you live from the Welcome Center at the DMZ. We'll be back with more.
The DMZ looks lit.
Yeah, it was a sight. I didn't quite expect it to be like the tourist trap that it was, but of course, looking back, that's exactly what it turned out to be.
Huh. That blows my mind that they're taking this, very unfortunate separation of, what once was a great, cohesive country and, throwing a welcome center with Dora the Explorer thing and getting people to come visit. That's wild.
Kind of a good way to stunt, if you are trying to kind of talk to the people over the border and say, hey, you got no idea what you're missing out on. Like just putting up giant Six Flags there is kind of a good way to go about that, I guess.
Truly a tough scene looking across the border. You see there's a propaganda village that you can see directly from there. And like a massive flagpole that Lil Kimmy wanted to erect, he put up there. Made the pole way too big. Therefore,
seems like a metaphor.
Yeah, the flag was like massive. That like there's not like strong enough wind in this world to actually get it to rise up and float. So it's just constantly hanging down there.
Seems like a metaphor too.
Yeah, it was a true own goal situation that didn't quite work out for him. But they talk about that a lot, break it down, and everything there. We actually a phenomenal trip to Korea. We're going to have kind of like a week in the life light video of our experience there with Korean golf, as well as a film room at a pretty cool golf course. So excited for that to come out probably later this winter or beginning of the year.
And another film room you guys shot. I don't want to step on your agenda, but another film room you guys shot this week.
Yeah, we were out at Fields Ranch East course. Gil Hans design that the Omni Hotels and Resorts put up. That's where the PGA of America headquarters is at now, kind of to the side. But great day out there. We talked about it a little at the beginning, but not my best golf. But it's such a cool golf course. Excited to see it. They're actually hosting the senior PGA there next year, like right when they're opening up. So it was great to get eyes on it and see how it's going to play out, because they're going to be a ton of major championships there.
A lot of Cancun all-inclusive resort vibes for just a golf sicko. That's how I would describe it.
That's a heck of a review.
Think about what you will.
It's going to be a really, really cool property, though. And last thing, I think before we get to the end of the agenda, is that I actually had Neil on Downrange. Talked a lot about a ton of topics. Talked a little bit of business, his growth within this business world from, coming out of college, working at some startups, everything else like that, to noing up and kind of his busy time of the year, closing deals. And of course, we had to add a little bit of Halloween content in there. And I thought, honestly, that was probably one of the funniest parts of the entire episode. So if you haven't downloaded Downrange, go check it out. But here's Neil with a little Halloween goodness.
It's a great question. I was a great Pablo Escobar years ago. When
oh man, I got a great picture
when that
of this.
show on Netflix was on. I had got the pillow in the belly, had a really good Pablo look with the stash and everything. This was probably like 2015. That's not my favorite though. That's probably like the best generic one I've been. But there's been, I guess, 2 separate occasions where I've been one of my friends for Halloween. The first was in college. I was my friend Chris Perush, Skinny P, this kid from Long Island. I was him for Halloween, and so I just walked around and acted like a caricature of a guy from Queens, and stick the hair up and that wore a graphic tee. It was deep in the I think sophomore year of college.
This, I don't know if you guys can see this, but this is one of the Neil costumes that he's referencing.
Oh, is that
which is amazing. That was, I believe, at Tron's old house on Halloween.
Hell yeah.
Yeah. Really good stuff.
Well, there we go. The only other thing left on there, of course, the cut, not just talking about film and everything going on, no laying up wise, but monitoring the cut on this Friday afternoon. One event going on that has a cut in it right now because the ladies are off, and Liv, of course, does not live by a cut line. And that's the Bermuda Championship. Cut looking at 5 under. Bo Van Pelt trying to make it in there. And, friend of the pod, David Leamer, right there as well. But do you guys know who's winning this event right now?
I wouldn't have if you did not mention it when we first kind of teed up here.
Ben
Unbelievable.
Crane out of nowhere, probably zero status, getting a full field event, getting all the points possible. He's right up there leading at 14 under, currently through round 2.
The fact that, we can save this maybe for the pod this weekend, but the whole reason, not to make everything a live thing, but the whole reason that you need to have a qualification system for your tour is that someone like fucking Ben Crane can just roll out of bed and shoot 62 in a PJ Tour event.
Right.
Still, there are thousands and thousands and thousands of these dudes that can do this. And it's just insane that you can just sign somebody to a deal and be like, yeah, well, let's rank them in the same way that we rank, all these other guys. It's just crazy.
You know who can't do that, though, Deej?
That's wild, man.
You know who can't do that?
that?
Kim Swan.
Kim Swan. Tough week for
Kim. Can't roll
Swan.
out of bed and shoot 62.
Did you have No, currently in last by, it looks like 23 shots. 89-81 for Kim Swan. That's tough. That's tough.
I don't know who Kim Swan is. I know you guys mentioned earlier he's the a local pro, former PGA Tour player.
Yeah, Andy just melted
he's
him down.
65-year-old. Yeah, I would recommend everyone listen to our friends at the Shotgun Start. Had a good primer on Kim Swan today. I think he's a 65-year-old member of the board of trustees of this golf course. Former pretty solid college golfer, and maybe played some pro golf. I'm not actually sure, but yeah, just not his week. Couldn't get it going.
That sucks. Tough for him. You got to take advantage of those opportunities when you get them.
Yeah. Well, now he's not going to reshuffle up, and it's just it's the whole thing. Yeah.
Well, cool. I appreciate Solly jumping on and being the first guest caller. Everybody else afraid to do it, I guess. The whole reason why we're doing this over here and not on StreamYard is so we can have people in the studio jump on. Guys, before we close this out, any parting thoughts?
Just a overwhelmed thank you to everybody who watched episode 1. Feedback was uncomfortably positive. So thank you to everybody for reaching out and watching and commenting and sharing and liking and all of those verbs. And thank you to you guys for helping put together what I think is probably our best one yet. So I'm on to the next one.
You guys, I know we put out, Solly tweeted it out this morning. We talked about it on the Refuge, but people out there just getting nuked right now by ads, and there's a reason for that.
There's a reason, a very good reason, and a reason I have no issues with. When you use copyrighted music on YouTube videos, which we used a song by Hep Stars, which was a kind of proto ABBA band. One of the guys from ABBA before he was in ABBA. That's the song at the beginning of the episode, which my wife Justine found and was like, hey, this would be a really cool little moment. When you use that music, YouTube's algorithm recognizes that and then says, cool, you can use this copyrighted music, but we're going to throw ads on your video and we're going to pay the money from those ads to the copyright holder. And so sometimes it's worth, sometimes it's worth it. Sometimes it's not. And this one we felt like was worth it. So sorry you had a couple ads. Would happily give everybody a refund on what they spent for episode 1 if they're not into that.
And speaking of, shout out to Precision Pro. I think I have the majority of the remaining sleeves that we had from the season up here behind me. Let me grab them.
God, that was such a fun thing.
The fact that we can just take these off and slap them around, and they obviously sponsor a ton of stuff that we do at No Laying Up, but the presenting sponsor of Tourist Sauce, it's great. Great to see a great company making really good products and going above and beyond to make some cool, unique ones for the season. So anything from you, Deej? I see your product placement shots all over the place. I don't know how you're getting accurate numbers with the left-hand hold to the right eye, but We got it in the bank. So I think
Listen,
that's
man,
all we
you
need
got
to do.
you gotta pay the bills here. All right, we gotta show off the product. How many fucking sponsors is the cut bringing in, boys? We gotta, you want to come after my rangefinder etiquette? We could take that offline.
All right, I think that's good, and that's a cut.
Ah.